What's going on, family? This is Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. We're going to get into Volume 3 of Boxing Talk with Scrapbook. Now, right now, I want to get into one of the greatest Puerto Rican fighters of all time, Felex Tito Trinidad Jr. He was born January 10th, 1973, San Juan, Puerto Rico. He stood 5'11" and weighed 138 to 170 pounds. Felex Trinidad's dad was his both trainer and manager, and I got to take my hat off to that because I think that was a very good idea. He would be able to manage his money, manage his training, and make sure that he was treated fairly. Felex Tito Trinidad always put me in mind of the late, great Sugar Ray Robinson. He was a devastating puncher as a welterweight. Two-fisted punching power. Could knock you out with either hand. Sugar Ray Robinson can knock you out with a 5-punch and 7-punch combination. He would be able to hook off the jab, move from left to right. He can go forward. He can take a punch. He can punch himself. Sugar Ray Robinson was the only fighter that I know can knock you out moving backwards, moving sideways, falling down. I mean, fascinating fighter was Sugar Ray Robinson. But Tito Trinidad can punch as well as a welterweight. He was tall just like Robinson. He had punching power like Robinson. And, you got to give Felex Tito Trinidad all the credit in the world. He fought some of the greatest fighters of his time, as did Robinson. Now, Robinson had an amateur career of over 80 fights with 60 knockouts and 40 in the very first round, as opposed to Felex Trinidad, who had 51 fights, 6 losses, and 12 knockouts. That's the difference between the two fighters coming in from the amateurs. Robinson was knocking out welterweights when he was a featherweight, and he was knocking out middleweights when he was a lightweight. Trinidad, on the other hand, stopped. He was able to continue to punch even when he moved up from welterweight to junior middleweight and beyond, but he couldn't take the same punch as Robinson, and that was the difference. 1985, Felex Trinidad won the National Puerto Rican Championship in 100 pounds. 86 was 112 pounds. 87 was 119 pounds. 88, 126 pounds, which is featherweight, and 89 was 132 pounds, which was lightweight. Those are the Puerto Rican titles that Felex Trinidad had won coming out of those amateurs. In 1990, March 10th, he would face a fighter by the name of Angel Romero, Puerto Rico. He would knock him out in 2 rounds. That was 7 fights he had in Puerto Rico that particular year of 1990. 1991, he would face a fighter by the name of Noel Rivera. March 13th, he would knock him out in 1 round. He had 6 fights that year. 1992, 3 fights. May 3rd, he had his 1 fight with Raul Gonzalez, and that was a beautiful fight between the 2 fighters in Puerto Rico, and he would knock him out in 4 rounds. 1993, February 13th, he would face Henry Hughes in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and he would knock him out in 1 round. He had 3 fights that year. 1993, he moved up in competition. On June 19th, he would face the thin man, Maurice Blocker, and he would knock him out in 2 rounds for the IBF welterweight strap. And that was very surprising to me because Maurice Blocker would take the title away from Glenwood the Real Beast Brown. Glenwood the Real Beast Brown was an MSG fighter. I used to watch him a lot in the Fell Forum, and he was a fascinating fighter. He was had big legs and very strong, and I used to watch him a lot. I used to watch him train. I remember he was training with a guy by the name of John Wesley Meekins, and that sparring session was something else, and that taught me a lot about Glenwood the Real Beast Brown. So when Maurice Blocker beat Glenwood the Real Beast Brown, that taught me a lot about Maurice Blocker, and then when Trinidad knocked out Maurice Blocker in 2 rounds, that told me all I needed to know about Felex Tito Trinidad. So that was a very good accomplishment. He had 2 title defenses that particular year. 1994, January 29th, he would face Macho Hector Camacho. Defeat him in 12 rounds. Camacho was a commodity in New York. He was a lightweight champion. I was at that fight in Madison Square Garden when he would take on Edwin Ochoa Rosario, and that was an upset in the making. He had hurt Camacho twice, and Camacho was given a victory because he was a commodity in New York. That was a rivalry between Puerto Ricans. Puerto Rico was supporting, for the most part, Rosario, and New York was supporting, for the most part, Hector Macho Camacho. On the undercard, you had Mike Tyson coming up. He was facing Reggie Gross, got him out of there in 1 round. And you had Julio Cesar Chavez versus Juan Laporte. So that was a very good card that particular night. September 17th, he would face Yuri Boy Campos. And I'm telling you, that was a vicious left hook that he got Campos out of there with. Almost took his head off. He hit him with a straight right hand, got him against the ropes, turned to the side, and he hit him with a left hook. And that head went all over the place. I mean, it was crazy. I thought he killed him, to be honest with you. but that was a pulverizing left hook similar to Sugar Ray Robinson. December 10th, Obakar. Obakar was a protege of Emmanuel Stewart. He was a Kronk fighter. He was an up-and-coming young man. Everybody thought high hopes for Obakar. Obakar was taken over by Don King Promotions. And at that point, you know, it just got to a point where they put him in there with a fighter the caliber of Trinidad, and that was it. He got knocked out in 8 rounds. In 1995, November 18th, he would face a fighter by the name of Larry Barnes, knock him out in 4 rounds. Now, Larry Barnes was from Yonkers, New York. He was a flat-footed fighter that came straight forward. He'd move from side to side, bob and weave, keep coming in. He reminded me of Troy Dorsey. And he just couldn't take the punching power of Felex Trinidad. He got knocked out in 4 rounds. 1999, February 20th, Purnell Sweet Pea Whitaker. Purnell Whitaker was a gold medalist in 1984 games. He was an up-and-coming fighter that fought them all. Purnell Sweet Pea Whitaker. He was one of the greatest defensive fighters of all times. He took the title away from Ramirez. He got robbed with Ramirez the first time they fought in Paris, France. But he came back and he did one of the greatest performances that you can think of, similar to Sugar Ray Robinson with Jake LaMotta when he fought Ramirez the second time. He would go on and take the title away from Greg Haugen, and then he would take the title away from Juan Nazario, knocking him out in the first round. So fascinating fighter was Purnell Whitaker. He was in there with all of the fighters of his time, Oscar De La Hoya, Chavez, you name it, he was in there with him, Azuma Nelson. But at that time, he couldn't take the punching power of Felex Tito Trinidad. And you got to think about it, Purnell Whitaker was past his prime at that time. So in 12 rounds, he gave us a good thrill fight, did a little dipsy doodle just for our entertainment, but he couldn't do anything other than that. So he lost a 12-round decision to Tito Trinidad. September 18th, Oscar De La Hoya, WBC IBF unification bout. Oscar De La Hoya was winning the fight for the first, I would say, 7-8 rounds. But then he said anyway that Gil Clancy told him to move. So he started to move, started to run around, and took 4 rounds off. And he gave the fight to Tito Trinidad. So it is what it is. Salute to Tito Trinidad. I had De La Hoya winning the fight up until that point. But then, I gave it to Tito Trinidad. Because, hey, look, you got to understand. 2 champions in the ring, effective aggressiveness at that point is who you give it to. So salute to Tito Trinidad. 2000, March 3rd, he would face David Reed. David Reed had a disability. He had a drooping eyelid. But he was an undefeated fighter. This was for the WBA Junior Middleweight Championship. Trinidad had relinquished his welterweight championship and never lost it in the ring. And he would defeat David Reed and become the WBA Junior Middleweight Champion of the world. Fascinating. Then he would unify that December 2nd with Fernando Vargas. Fernando Vargas would come in there very cocky, and he would get hurt in the very 10 seconds of the first round. And he would get dropped and hurt twice in the first round. But the problem with Trinidad, he couldn't really take a good punch. That was the problem, because he got dropped in the 4th round, although he had already hurt Vargas. And, that separates him from Sugar Ray Robinson as well. But he finished the fight. That was one of the best fights of the year, perhaps one of the best fights in the last 5 years of that particular year. And that's what you want, the best to fight the best. And that's the kind of entertaining boxing match you're going to get. So salute to Trinidad for that knockout of Vargas. 2001, May 12th, he would fight William Joppy. That would be for the WBA middleweight strap. He would knock him out in 5 rounds. Trinidad could punch. September 29th, WBA, WBC, and the IBF would be at stake. Madison Square Garden, right after 9/11. He would get in there with Bernard Executioner Hopkins. He was attempting to earn the unified middleweight championship of the world. That's what fascinating fighters do. It was an outstanding fight. I was at that fight at the Madison Square Garden, and they gave us a thrill. Trinidad kept coming. He kept trying. Bernard Hopkins, that was the best performance I have ever seen him in. And, he dropped Trinidad in the 12th round. He hurt him in the 11th, but he dropped him in the 12th. Trinidad couldn't get up. He tried his very best. So I salute him for that. But Bernard Hopkins was a little too much for him. 2008, he would face fighters such as Winky Wright, Ricardo Mayorga. Now, I was at that fight at Ricardo Mayorga at Madison Square Garden. It was a comeback fight for him. He was trying to get out of the contract, so he stayed out of boxing for 2 years because Don King wasn't paying him right as far as he was concerned. And then when he got a good contract with Don King, he came back, and that was the fight he fought in Madison Square Garden with Ricardo Mayorga. That was a good fight. I was there that night. And salute to Trinidad. Roy Jones Jr., he got dropped in that fight. He got up. So he had a lot of heart. So salute to Felex Tito Trinidad, one of the greatest welterweight fighters of all time. I have him ranked number 3 of the greatest Puerto Rican fighters of all time. I have Wilfredo Gomez number 1, Cisco Escobar number 2, and Trinidad number 3. Fascinating, brilliant, two-fisted puncher. Oscar De La Hoya and Trinidad. They say it was a controversial fight. So I have some stats I was looking at, and I actually looked at that fight 2 different occasions. And I gave the fight to Felex Trinidad. Fascinating fight that night. And this is why you can't have a career without fighting the very best, because you'll never know how good you really are. And you owe it to the fans. Your legacy is at stake. So all the dipping and dodging and trying to make excuses as to why you're not going to fight this fighter, you're not a fighter. That's not what fighters do. You're just a man in there with gloves, made a lot of money in your career, but you're not a fighter. I don't consider any man who does not want to take on the challenge of fighting the best a fighter. He was just in my era, and that's it. I moved on past him. And that's just the way it is, because I've been in boxing too long. I've studied history of boxing too long, and I'm not a fool. I'm not going to allow another fighter, another man, just to fool me because he's trying to be an scapegoat. He's trying to make money. And he's too coward to get in there and fight with, another fighter of his caliber. Now here you have some stats. I studied this fight over and over again. And I'm always going to have Trinidad winning that fight. De La Hoya was leading on the scorecards. The first 7 rounds, 7-8 rounds. And then Trinidad just took over. De La Hoya blamed Gil Clancy and said that Gil Clancy wanted him to move and wanted him to stay away. So he did what Gil Clancy wanted him to do. But at some point, if you are a fighter and you realize that your title's on the line, and not even a title, just the fact that there's another man in front of you that's trying to take what you have to make a decision. And De La Hoya didn't make that decision. De La Hoya was never really up for the big fights. Trinidad was, and that's the difference between the two of them. Now here you have Jerry Roth had it 115-113 for Trinidad. Glenn Herrera had it even 14-14 for both fighters. And Rob Lodges had it 115-114 for Trinidad. So here you have it. Felex Tito Trinidad, one of the greatest Puerto Rican fighters of all time. I have him ranked number 3. And he'll always be ranked number 3 until another great Puerto Rican fighter comes along. This is Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff series. Thanks for hanging in there with me with Boxing Talk with Scrapbook. Salute to my subscribers. Salute to Tito Trinidad. Look out for ringside historians. Salute.